Here we go. Big bit of wheels spit off the line there. Nice. G'day, I'm Paul. So, electric car prices in Australia, they are coming down, and a lot of it is being driven by cars like this. It is electric vehicles that are manufactured in China, and this is one of the cheapest ways you can get into an electric car in Australia. It's called the BYD Dolphin. It's priced at just under 37 grand for the entry-level model. This one here is the top spec. It is more expensive, but you are getting a couple of other sort of bells and whistles, and it is quicker than the base model as well. Today we're going to be doing a detailed review of this, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now let's talk about design. So you can tell the entry level from the top spec by the paint. So the top spec gets this two-tone coloured setup. Outside of that, all the colours are free of charge. So electric vehicle, they have really interesting grills because, you know, if you think back to when cars were, you know, just internal combustion, a grill was there for cooling and then it became a design element. And just having it all blank just looks a little bit weird. So they've still retained some of that grille element, but it's more there just to make it look like a car and not just sort of some featureless thing that is moving down the road. A lot of LED highlights. So you've got LED headlights with this LED bar that runs along the bottom there. Got a camera nestled down there as well for the 360 camera. And then around the side here, we've got a set of 17-inch alloy wheels. If you go for the entry level, you're getting slightly smaller alloy wheels instead. But again, aero, it really is just the thing that drives a lot of these electric vehicles in terms of their efficiency. And that comes down to things like wheels as well. You can see this has these aero covers as well, just to improve that efficiency as it cuts through the air. Wheel arch guard there, not really for anything in particular. This isn't off-road capable. It's a front-wheel drive car, only minimal ground clearance, so it just gives it a bit of a tougher look. Charging port just here. NFC up the top here, so you don't have to actually use your key to get in and out of the car, which is good news. Keys, every time I think about it, it's like, well, what is the purpose of a key? It used to be to put it in and turn and to start a car, but now you don't really need that anymore. Everyone's got a phone, and NFC-capable devices are going to be the future of how you get in and out of cars. Sorry about all the sign writing. They've given us this car and it's sort of covered in all this stuff, which looks a little bit cheap and very markety. This is not a sponsored review, so just ignore that. That's why I've covered up the QR code as well, so it doesn't look like we're trying to force this down your throat. You've got a full glass roof there as well. Now, round the back here, this is one of the things that I reckon is a little bit goofy. Build your dreams. That's what BYD stands for, but I don't know, just seems a little bit much. So in other BYD models, they've actually got rid of this and trimmed it down. So hopefully they end up doing the same here. BYD Dolphin down there for the branding. And then you've got this sort of wavy LED light that runs along the back there. And the arch nemesis of the Dolphin, I think, the shark fin aerial. Very good. And diffuser down the bottom there as well. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Do you think this looks good? Do you think the pricing is right? Do you still think they need to be cheaper? I'm keen for your feedback. Okay, so we are inside the Dolphin. Doesn't sound very nice, does it? But we're inside the BYD Dolphin. This is what the key looks like. You've got lock, unlock, 2 taps of that for boot, remote start, then BYD on the back. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket. And you're going to push button start up here, or you can use NFC to turn it over as well. Now, despite this looking small on the outside, and you look at the price, one of the cheapest EVs in Australia, it does not feel cheap inside the cabin. And I keep saying this about these Chinese market vehicles. They just look and feel so much more premium than everything else in this segment. In fact, we're driving a Suzuki Jimny at the moment as well, and I know that they're completely different cars, totally different, but $36,000 for a BYD compared to $36,000 for a Suzuki. I mean, they are just chalk and cheese in terms of interior quality. So I think it just shows you how much value you're actually getting here. These guys are trying to take as much market share as they can, and they're trying to do that by giving you the sort of premium look and feel. So big screen in the center there that rotates. I'll show you that in a second. And then soft touch materials. Look, I'm kind of not, you know, a huge fan of the over-stylized elements around here, and they've actually just released an update for the BYD Seal, the interior of it, and they've kind of done away with all this stuff, and it just looks far more sort of BMW than it does, you know, old school sort of BYD. So I like the direction that they're heading in. But anyway, touch points, what are they like? So soft there, soft on the door as well. How soft are they? We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, build quality, what is it like? A little bit wonky there in the center. The rest of this feels okay, and it's what the door slam sounds like. Now let's talk about infotainment. Look at this, you're getting basically a computer inside the cabin here, so just under 13 inches in size. Now the interesting thing as well, I noticed that this is a lot quicker than every other BYD I've tested before with this style of infotainment. So I don't know whether this gets a faster processor or not, but all of the functions are just much quicker, sharper, and everything just happens much snappier. So yeah, I think that's a sort of pretty impressive setup. So you have inbuilt satellite navigation. You also have smartphone mirroring with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, inbuilt Spotify, AM, FM, DAB digital radio with a 6-speaker sound system. Nothing sort of too crazy, but it does the job. You then also have the ability to add apps. And the interesting thing was when we tested the C-Line 6, I did notice there was like a little hole up the top here. It's actually for a dash camera you can order from BYD. Thank you to everyone who let me know in the comments section below. Once you do add that in, you can actually basically access the dash camera here through the central screen. It sort of just gets added as an app. So I think that's a pretty cool setup that you can just add that as you go, which is kind of interesting. You can also rotate the screen. So one push of that allows you to make that vertical, but it is worth keeping in mind that if you do have Android or Apple CarPlay running, you can't actually rotate the screen while it is running, but I guess it's kind of cool that you can do that. And then a 5-ish inch screen over here ahead of the driver as well, which gives you critical information like speed, power, how much range you have left and all that kind of stuff as well. And then on the safety front, you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, auto dimming rear vision mirror, blind spot monitor built into your wing mirrors. You have front and rear parking sensors. You have a semi-autonomous steering function that we'll test a little bit later on, and then a 360 camera. I will show you what that looks like. So there it is there. Quality of that is pretty decent. You can see clearly what's on there. I find that angle just a bit strange. The horizon is sort of weird and wacky there, but a stack of different views to pick from there, which is nice to see. There you go, you can go see-through with that. 3D view as well. Very nice. This is what the horn sounds like. Now, what about your practicality? And we'll start off with your connectivity. Look at that, you've got a wireless phone charger. That's great news. Down here, you've got a USB-A port, a USB-C port, a 12 volts outlet. On the storage front, you've got so much storage. So there's a little cubby hole down here. I like the fact that there is some hidden storage. So, you don't just see everything that you have from outside the car. You've got storage down the bottom here as well. Little storage nook next to the driver's knee with some door pockets there. You've got a reasonably sized glove box as well, which is pretty good. And then on comfort, you have dual zone automatic climate control. A little bit fiddly because while you can switch it on and off here, to change your temperatures, you've got to go into this screen and then faff around with it in there. That's kind of annoying in my opinion. Heated seats as well for your front row. And then in addition to that, you have electrically adjustable seats for driver and front passenger. So you can go forwards, backwards. Your backrest can go forwards and backwards, and then you can lift the back of the seat as well. Steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment. And let's do a little reach test here. Yeah, just that stuff on the outside edge there is just a little bit harder to reach. Okay, second row. It's actually a surprising amount of legroom here. So knee room is great, toe room not very good. It's quite sort of compromised there. Headroom not amazing either, but I was expecting this to be really small and cramped back here, but it's actually not too bad. You've got device holders here with map pockets, one cup holder, USB-C, USB-A, no air vents around here. But you do get a center armrest there with 2 cup holders, ISOFIX points with top tether points as well. Let's see our window, whether it goes all the way down. So it's auto up and down. Oh, so close. Yeah, cargo space. Let's have a little look. So you have just under 350 litres here, just in its standard trim. It's quite a deep boot, so you can sort of store a fair bit in there, but just that lip is quite high. Beneath the cargo floor, you have a little hood there for the tyre repair kit. Show what it looks like with our suitcase in there. Sort of just fits one of those medium-sized suitcases. And then if you do want some more space in there, you can get rid of this guy. Drop your second row, and that expands the space to around 1,300 litres. But as you can see there, you've got a massive climb, so it's not exactly a flat floor. Now, before we go for a spin, let's talk about charging and battery capacity. So battery size is just over 60 kilowatt hours usable. It's an LFP battery, which means you can charge it to 100% without any dramas there. On the charging front, you've got AC and DC charging. AC up to just over 7 kilowatts and DC 80 kilowatts with an average of about 60-65. So pretty sort of reasonable charging specs there, which, you know, for a vehicle this size, you don't want to be sitting around forever waiting for it to charge. Driving range of 430-ish kilometers on the WLTP cycle as well. You also have vehicle to load available, so you can power external appliances using the car's battery. And do you want to buy a BYD? Well, have I got a deal for you? Well, actually, I have a page full of them. All you need to do is go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert" or use the QR code on the screen. It's going to take you to the CarExpert website. We're a big company. It's like over 60 full-time employees. Very impressive. We also have a page on the site with all of the deals going in Australia this month to help you figure out which car you need to pick. We can then even put you in touch with one of our friendly dealers who might even be able to get you a better deal as well. So go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert" or whip your phone out, scan the QR code, and away you go. Okay, so we're setting off for a drive, and this is really confusing. So to go into reverse, I push up. I would have thought that was drive because the D moves. Anyway, I'm sure you get used to that as an owner, but that's a little confusing to me. Anyway, what is powering this? So there's two different versions of the Dolphin. You've got the entry level and then there's top spec. And there's a big difference between the two in terms of performance specs. This top spec will do like 0 to 100 in 7 seconds, and the entry level is over 12 seconds. So it is sort of fairly zippy to drive around. It has a single electric motor mounted to the front axle. And when you sort of punch it, a nice little push in the back. And you're right at the limits of torque there on that front axle, 150 kilowatts of power, 310 Newton meters of torque. You kind of get to a point with a car where, especially a front wheel drive car, where you can just have too much torque on the front axle, and that brings stuff like torque steer in and just makes it a bit sort of unruly to drive. They are really straddling that threshold here. So it gives you the punch that you need, but you're right on the limits of traction. And that's not such a bad thing. I quite like that feeling because it means I have accessible power when I need it. And if you sort of punch it out of a corner, it sort of gets moving. But you'll see it's got torque steer where torque steer occurs where basically you've got a single axle like this, and it's trying to send as much torque as it can to the wheel that has the most traction. And in instances like that, when the car's leaning onto its side like that, you're basically getting to the point where that side of the car is getting all of your torque, and it's causing the car to just steer on its own. So yeah, just something to be aware of, that you know, it's lots of fun, but you just need to be paying attention if you really do get stuck into it. Now, what does that mean in terms of economy? This is a big battery for a vehicle this size, so you are getting that range, but it also means that you're not getting quite the best economy that you would from a vehicle with a smaller battery. BYD claims a figure of just under 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but we're actually achieving 15, which I think is pretty decent for a vehicle this size, especially after we've done some sportier driving around the track here as well. So I'm quite impressed with that economy figure. And in terms of weight, despite it sort of looking quite small on the outside, electric vehicles they tend to be heavier than your equivalent internal combustion vehicle. So we're talking about a weight of just under 1,700 kilos. So I'll be interested to see once we go for a bit of a sportier drive whether you do feel that weight behind the wheel. Just on the regen front, it's interesting. There's standard and high regen modes, but neither are really too sort of crazy. Even in high regen, I don't feel a great deal of regen braking. So it would be nice to see a bit more effort paid on that, and perhaps even like a one-pedal driving setup, because you'd be surprised with cars that have that one-pedal driving setup, you rarely ever use the brakes. You predict you're stopping early enough, and you rarely ever have to touch the brakes, and I'd love to see something like that here. Now, on the noise front, I did notice that there is a bit of tyre noise coming into the cabin. These Linglong tyres, I don't really have a great deal of experience with them, but they do seem to make a fair bit of cabin noise. And this is how it went up against our calibrated sound meter, if you want an idea of how it compares to other cars. The other thing I'm noticing here while we're driving as well is the reflection off the dashboard is kind of, you can see all the air vents there, and it can be a little bit annoying when the sun's on it because it makes it a little tricky to see out the front of the car. Outside of that though, good visibility down the side, and out the back it's quite a compromised narrow envelope. Okay, so sine waves, we do this at 130 k's an hour. It gives us an idea of what body control is like, and it is the maximum speed limit in Australia. Wow, it's already feeling quite floaty there. Okay, so there's 130. Whoa. Oh, yeah, that's super bouncy. Yeah, I'd say this about pretty much every Chinese market car that we review. They need a local ride and handling tune, because while it is nice and soft for driving in and around town, if you do venture out, into the country, and I mean, the more weight you have in the vehicle, the more amplified that is going to be. It just feels quite floaty and boaty. So yeah, it will get nauseating after a while, especially after you sort of go through at highway, even at 100 k's an hour, you're going to find that it feels very sort of ponderous as it goes over those divots in the road. Okay, bumpy road time. This is the worst road in Australia. Doing this at 90 k's an hour. We've got a condensed sine wave here as well. Okay. It doesn't feel too bad. So that's one of the advantages you have of really soft suspension. It takes in all those bumps really nicely. Now, let's go for a sportier drive. We'll see what this feels like. It has the ingredients for a sporty drive. So we've got normal, sport and eco as the drive modes. Pop it into sport, give that a little stab. Yeah, nice, that feels very nice and healthy. Okay, here comes our first corner. So we test all cars back to back in the same way to see what they feel like. Yeah, getting a little bit of torque steer, but my goodness, this thing absolutely hauls. These tyres have a fair bit of traction. I'm really surprised by how well they're holding onto the road there. And it is, the steering is so direct as well. Looks like it's got a variable ratio, because very minor steering inputs here on the faster sections are giving me quite a lot of steering angle on the wheels. But yeah, mid-corner bumps there, it's quite floaty and bouncy. Let's see what it's like on our back straight here. Yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with the steering. It's so direct. Kind of feels like a Model 3 in terms of how accurate it is. So here comes the back section. It's stuck into that. Look at that, that is still hauling along really nicely. Wow, very, very good. Nice. Yeah, brake pedal feels like it's starting to fade a little as well. So yeah, we had the same thing with the C-Line 6. The brakes were definitely not a strong suit, but summary there on the ride is on the handling front, it feels a bit boaty. If you hit mid-corner bumps, it sort of throws the car around a little bit. But once it sort of settles in and you kind of get the hang of it, it's actually really fun to drive. And that sort of variable ratio steering is quite interesting too. They've dialed in a lot of sportiness there. So there is actually a sport variant of this car that we won't get in Australia. So I'd love to actually drive that to see what that's like, because this thing has, the recipe for actually being quite entertaining to drive. I think with a decent set of brakes and a better tune, this would actually be pretty sort of smile-inducing for a front-wheel drive, sort of hot hatch style thing. Okay, time to do some testing of the semi-autonomous systems. We use the 3 outer lanes here of the bowl to see how well it works and how well it holds the vehicle in its lane. So let's engage that. Pop the speed up to 70 k's an hour. Wait for that to activate. Oh, it says I'm speeding, even though I'm not. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so it's holding us pretty nicely there in this first lane. No dramas there, which is good. We'll jump over to the next lane. See how well it performs up here. Wait for that steering wheel to go green. There it is. And it's getting close to that line there, but it's correcting itself back into the center. That's not too bad. All right, jump over to the outermost lane. See what it's like up here. Wait for that to go green. It may not want to activate. Doesn't look like it likes it up here. No, it's not going to activate. Yeah, in the first 2 lanes there, it actually performed pretty well and was holding on to itself nicely. So passed in lane 1 and 2, but it didn't even activate in lane 3. Okay, let's do some performance testing. So I'm going to slot this over to sport mode, and what I'll do is switch stability control off as well, just so we can get as much traction off the line as possible. Here we go. So we're going to go 0 to 100 and then all the way through to 120 as well, so we can get our 80 to 120 time. So here we go. Big bit of wheel spit off the line there. Nice. There's 100 and there's 120. Let's see what that looks like. So I think BYD claims a time of about 7 seconds. We may have lost a bit of time there off the line with wheel spin, but let's see how it went anyway. So 0 to 100, 7.61. We'll try it again without me being too silly. And then 80 to 120, 4.68. So that's a really good healthy number because it just shows you that that mid-range acceleration is quite sort of strong and healthy there. So let's go back again and I'll stop being stupid. Okay, we're gonna try that again. This time, I'm gonna leave stability control and traction control on. It doesn't have a launch control as far as I can tell, so we'll see how that goes. So brake and throttle, and then I'll just step off the brake. There we go, that's been a little bit of wheel slip off the line, but it actually controlled that nicely. There's 100 and 120. I kind of feel like a bit of a robot here because with an automatic and especially with an EV, it's just digital, so I just press on the throttle. There's not really much to it. So 0 to 100 that time, 7.33 seconds. So that's pretty much close to the claim there. We're at 52% state of charge on the battery. 80 to 120, 4.77. So pretty much the same as before. Okay, time to do a stop from 100 to see what this brake and tyre package is like. So here we go. Oh, that didn't feel very good. I felt like it took a little while to stop there. Let's have a look at that stopping distance. Yeah, 2.96 seconds, 42.21 metres. That's really not very good for such a small car like this. Should be stopping closer to 35 metres. So definitely something they need to work on. We've had that feedback before on other BYD products as well, that the stopping distances can be, or could be a little bit better. If you want to see how this car compares in terms of performance and stopping and all that sort of stuff to other cars that we've tested, there is a link in the description below. Now, how quick does it go in reverse? Here we go. Okay, 25 kilometres an hour. So the BYD Dolphin, what do we reckon? One of Australia's cheapest SUVs, but you'd never pick it by driving it. It's actually so much fun to drive, just genuinely fun to sort of throw around some corners. It has that sort of enthusiastic feel behind the wheel. It's a bit like a hot hatch. They do need to sort out the ride because the ride is really what lets it down once the speed does pick up. And the brakes as well. I reckon they could have slightly meatier brakes, but outside of that, it is such a fun car to drive. So let me know in the comments section below, have you had a look at one of these? What do you reckon? Did you buy one? If not, what did you buy instead? I'm keen to hear your feedback. And do you think the price is right? I'm keen to hear feedback on that as well. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.